My friends, I have found something truly incredible to tide us over whilst we wait for the next official Halo campaign. Today, I am so excited to cover the true sequel to Halo 3, made of course by the fans. Welcome to Halo New Covenant. Now, I covered this campaign years ago when it was very much in its infancy, when it was just one level that looked like this, and now it looks like this, full of incredible diverse levels and environments, brand new weapons, brand new enemies, and even pre-rendered blur-style cutscenes. The quality of this campaign is frankly staggering. I mean, my jaw literally dropped on multiple instances whilst playing through it. It's not quite finished yet, but there's a ton here already, and I guarantee that your jaw is also going to be dropping several times throughout this video as we break it down. Calling it developer-made almost feels like I'm downplaying it. I mean, it truly feels like a brand new, official Halo campaign from top to bottom, a true sequel to Halo 3 in every conceivable manner, and there's no better example of this than the way that it opens. The campaign begins with a custom cutscene that picks up directly as Halo 3 ends, and my god, the quality of the cutscenes in this campaign is frankly astonishing. Seriously, prepare for your jaw to drop like mine did. Oh, just real quick, the morning after I post this video, I'm going to be getting surgery to revert my big boss status, so if the next video is slightly delayed, then, well, that's my excuse. I became invisible. Anyway, it begins as Arbiter and Lord Hud say their final words at the Void Memorial, before Arbiter is flown back to the Shadow of Intent to reunite with Halfjaw before setting their course for St. Helios and departing Earth. We then skip forward 25 days to March 28th, 2553. 23 days away from their arrival back at St. Helios, the Shadow of Intent is preparing to jump back home. But out of the dark of space, a CCS battlecruiser emerges with a fleet of Space Banshees and Phantoms, aboard which the remains of the Covenant seek revenge against the elites. The Shadow of Intent's bridge crew are alerted and the assault begins. Shipmaster deploys a fleet of Seraphs to defend his ship, and a space battle ensues, but the brute Covenant Space Banshees quickly overpower the Seraphs and disable the Intent's weapon systems before boarding the ship. Ready to defend the ship, the Arbiter arms up once more, and the level begins with a really well-acted monologue courtesy of Shipmaster.
Brothers, we are all warriors of St. Helios. Now it is time to prove yourselves. Do not let them take this bridge. They will not have the Shadow of Intent.
Almost immediately after, the bridge is assaulted by hordes of devout ex-Covenant warriors, and along with the bridge crew, including Artas himself, you fend off multiple waves of enemies. With the bridge secured again, for now, Artas shows you a hologram of the Shadow of Intent's reactor, which is currently under assault by the boarders, and so you set off through the ship to clear them out, because if they secure the reactor, it's game over. After leaving the bridge, you head through some rather familiar looking hallways before reaching the first of many new areas on the ship. So before, when I covered New Covenant, the geometry of the level was literally just copy and pasted from Halo 2's High Charity, like it was one-to-one. But now, it's all entirely original, and it certainly feels it. This first area feels like the elite take on High Charity's Hanging Gardens, with lush plants and fauna emerging from the very Covenant purple alloys. Like all the other areas on the ship in this level, these royal gardens feel like nothing that we've ever fought through in Halo before, which is a very nice and refreshing surprise. Speaking of entirely new areas, the Arbiter fights through these gardens and pushes through to the Shadow of Intent's hangar bay, and this room is massive. In fact, strange reference, it really reminds me of this hangar bay from Turok Evolution. There are already signs of battle in the hangar, courtesy of the elites that have managed to stand their ground here, and you push through, repelling more boarders alongside still docked Seraphs and defenses that the enemies had already managed to set up. You then take one of the ship's conduit systems, which I've gotta say is really vibey. Like, what is it with the Covenant designing such cool forms of short-distance transportation? I mean, High Charity had those gravitic travelators, those really long gravity elevator tubes, and now the elites have really cool gravity conduits like this. Like, those guys know what they're doing. But on the other side of this conduit, we reach our target, the Shadow of Intent's reactor, and this room is gorgeous looking. It feels like such a faithful recreation of the ship's reactor that we saw in Halo 2, with added platforms to turn it into like an actual functioning level space. It just looks so vast and cavernous and realistic as well, which I think makes sense given, that the ship's reactor is literally the thing powering the ship. And also graphically it looks amazing too. To say that this is running on an engine from 2009 is remarkable and then some. Another really cool detail is that given a lot of the technology that's used in Covenant ships is actually Foreigner in nature, as we reach the reactor room, we start seeing small pieces of Foreigner tech, like this thing, for example. Yeah, this is just a small detail, but it really helps to make the world feel that much more authentic and believable. After reactivating the reactor and watching the energy within spool back up, Shipmaster frantically radios in. The enemy ship's shields refuse to break, and the bridge is once again under attack. And so, we rush back, but this time taking a different route. This time, we go through what looks to be a fuel processing chamber, with huge vats likely containing the deuterium and tritium that's used to power Covenant fusion reactors. This room is again cavernous, thick with the gases being emitted by the generators, and infested with buggers. But of course, that's no challenge for old Arbiter, and he powers through before reaching what is my favourite room on the entire ship. What I can only describe as the Covenant's equivalent to a Victorian Gothic gas lamp lit garden. The murky atmosphere of this room, with the large trees in the planters and the Covenant-styled Gothic gas lamps, is such a novel aesthetic. It really gives off a sense of royalty and aristocracy, which makes sense given that the Shadow of Intent is arguably the flagship of the entire Swords of Sanghelios fleet. I just love the blend of purple Covenant alloys with the natural green flora and fauna, with the lamps in there as well. This just absolutely flicks my switches. When the chieftain and hunters that have locked down this area are taken care of, quite easily may I add, the level ends with another banger of a cutscene. Arbiter is rushing back to the bridge, newly acquired energy sword in hand, but as the door opens, he's hit with an extremely painful surprise, a chieftain's hammer to the face, followed by the stark realization that the entire bridge crew have been captured by this brute warlord and his allies, all of whom are coated in a mysterious golden shield. Okay, time out. I'm gonna do a little bit of an exposition dump now based on a cutscene that we get at the end of the campaign. It makes more sense to include this and talk about it now, so that's what I'm gonna do. So, aboard the Dreadnought, as it was on its way to Earth at the end of Halo 2, the Prophet of Truth learns of Tartarus's death on Delta Halo, and in his place, bestows this chieftain with the title of Warlord of the Covenant in his wake. He then issues this warlord his first mission under his new prestigious title. Truth had learned of the existence of this shield courtesy of Mendicant Bias, who at the time was also aboard the key ship. A shield so precious, it would ensure their deliverance into the Great Journey. And so, he sent the warlord on a mission to retrieve it from a mysterious desert world, which we later find out is in fact one of the primary listening outposts for none other than Installation 02, Epsilon Halo. The Brute's mission was successful, and as Truth had ordered, he went through the portal to the Ark and picked up his signal, but when he reached his location, he found the lifeless body of his hierarch at the apex of the now destroyed citadel where the Great Journey should have been commenced. How late he was, we don't quite know. All we do know is that he arrived at the Ark long after we left. And so, he swore to uphold the Covenant even to his dying breath, and continued Truth's wishes beyond his death. With the shield's immense strength, neither the Shadow of Intent nor any human ship would be able to break it, and the path to the Great Journey was assured. Arbiter tries and unfortunately fails to convince the Warlord that the Covenant is now over, and so, on Halfjaw's go, he plants a spike grenade on the Stalker who captured him and flees. But in retaliation, the Warlord orders the execution of the bridge crew. Yes, all of the bridge crew. So they, and also Shipmaster Artas Vadum, meet their end before ever returning to Sanghelios. In his retreat, the Arbiter manages to board a Phantom and flees the area right as the Warlord installs the shield device into the Shadow of Intent, covering it in a radiant golden energy and marking it as hijacked. The Arbiter flees to the UNSC Providence, which is a UNSC frigate that, in fact, Bungie had intended to be in Halo 3 originally, but that was cut at some point and kind of morphed into the Forward Unto Dawn that we end up getting. Aboard this ship is Lord Hood, and the two rendezvous aboard the bridge where Arbiter tells him of the Radical Covenant's plan to use this seemingly invincible ship to follow through with Truth's plan and annihilate humanity for good. Arbiter sends word back to the rest of his fleet who already made it back to St. Helios, while Lord Hood sends word out to the colonies of the various species who were once members of the Covenant. Thankfully, not everyone is falling for this radical sect's lies, and their presence will be of great aid. In attempting to rally the universe against this reformed Covenant, there's one person who they weren't able to get in contact with.
Chief! Please! Wake up!
But you can't save Chief, or even play this mod for that matter, without a banger of a PC, which is where my flood-themed PCs, made in partnership with Apex Gaming PCs, come in handy. From the pure form to the Gravemind and then the ultra-powerful Primordial build, we've got a PC build here for every budget and every degree of power. Just head to the link in the description and pick up one of these bad boys today.
Chief! Please! Wake up!
The second level, MIA, then begins in a very different region of the galaxy, aboard the UNSC Forward Unto Dawn. Chief is given another rather rude awakening, bursting out of his cryopod to pick up Cortana as the Dawn is ripping itself apart. With no time to think, he gets his assault rifle and launches himself through the ship's hallways, all identical mind you to how they were at the end of Halo 3, and he hops in a drop pod and launches himself out of the doomed ship, descending into a mysterious infinite desert. When you land, you pop out of the drop pod, and with no idea where you are, or what you're even on, you search the wreckage of the Dawn for supplies, which, again, feels very authentically Forward Unto Dawn, not like a totally different ship like it did in Halo 4. But when you leave the wreckage, you run into a rather familiar sight, a good old-fashioned Covenant raiding party. Once they're swiftly dealt with, you follow their tracks west, driving a chopper over the dunes of this infinite desert until you reach a very well fortified Covenant relay outpost, within which Cortana finds a fragment of data, before detecting a further 3 relay outposts scattered across the dunes. So you set out once more in your trusty chopper to clear these outposts and gather all the data fragments, and what ensues is a really fun and very open vehicle segment that's kind of a little bit reminiscent of Halo from Common Evolved, where you just explore the dunes, taking out packs of Covenant vehicle patrols and locking down the data fragments. And I gotta say, this section just reconfirmed to me that no video game, let alone any Halo game, has vehicle combat that comes even close to Halo 3's. The way that Halo 3's vehicles feel to drive, to fire, the destruction effects of enemy vehicles, and the way that they kind of crisp up and fragment as you destroy them has aged like the finest wine in existence. Halo 3's vehicle gameplay is the absolute peak of video game vehicle gameplay, and I swear to God, nothing in the industry, let alone Halo, has come even close to rivaling it since. Glazing tangent aside, the more data fragments you retrieve, however, the more corrupted you hear Cortana getting.
Looks like we're only missing a small piece now. Ugh! Ugh!
Cortana?
I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'll just need a patch when we get back.
And I gotta say, real quick, whoever the voice actress was for Cortana in this mod did a really, really good job. Props. When the data is fully reformed, it reveals jump points for a Covenant carrier, along with a set of coordinates in this desert. And so, after another long yet incredibly fun drive through the vast dunes of this mysterious location, you're led to a tiny cave entrance that's blocked by a Covenant shield, which ultimately the data fragment helps to lift. Descending into the cave system, the level design suddenly goes from insurmountably vast and endless to extremely confined and almost claustrophobic as you meander through the subtly violet tunnel, which eventually opens up to one of this mod's many awesome vistas. A huge cavern, dotted with Covenant lighting posts, and at the bottom of which lies the grand entrance to a Forerunner structure. Continuing your descent, you fight through a number of rooms where this new Covenant are already engaged in battle with Sentinels, before reaching this vast Forerunner room that's packed full of platforming sections. Now, Random tangent, I'm a huge sucker for platforming and jump puzzles in FPS games. I don't know why, they just flick my switches in all the right ways, which is why I was kind of over the moon that Infinite had one tiny platforming section in its campaign. So, this room right here is right up my alley. You skirt around the edges of the room, jumping over rotating bridges, going up and down elevator platforms, before eventually reaching this catwalk, upon which you hear the familiar sound of a monitor.
Get back here!
What was that voice? It sounded familiar.
Right before you're presented with a gigantic hologram of a Halo ring, and after taking out a chieftain and a pair of hunters, you formally meet this monitor. This is Monitor 02-274, the monitor of the primary listening outpost of Epsilon Halo. Upon initial encounter, the monitor is rather timid, but Cortana manages to coax him out, and he reveals that the Covenant forces stole the facility's shield generator, which is the one that we saw earlier. They were able to enter here because they had a key, which I presume was something that Truth managed to get out of Mendicant Bias. Either that or some sort of reclaimer that's not been let onto yet. Now well and truly friendly, the monitor reveals that the outpost lost contact with Epsilon Halo 8,200 cycles ago, before leading Chief and Cortana to a communications relay which they used to contact the UNSC, and, believe it or not, they're swiftly picked up by none other than the UNSC Providence and Lord Hood, a mere 4 months after going MIA. After Lord Hood and Chief reunite on the bridge, Chief also reunites with the Arbiter in a video game. How crazy is that? Anyway, everyone is brought up to speed, and the Arbiter notices that the jump points that Cortana found in the Covenant data fragment actually match the jump points of the Shadow of Intent right before it was raided, while the rest indicate its future destinations. Lord Hood notices that one of the future jump points is in fact the human colony world of Andesia, when it's a hotbed for the insurrection, and that the one after that is Earth. With this shield, which we then learn was a prototype developed by the foreigners, the hijacked Shadow of Intent will be able to lay waste to Earth, its shield utterly impervious to any of the Defense Fleet's attacks. The monitor confirms that the shield simply cannot be breached, but it can be disabled using a bypass module that was designed in unison with the shield. This bypass module is located within a research station on the same planet as the Installation O2 listening outpost, and so the fleet split up. Chief, Cortana, Lord Hood, and the majority of the fleet set a course for Andesia to intercept the Covenant Warlord and his fleet, whilst the Arbiter takes one frigate to secure the research station to secure the bypass module, which leads into the third and currently final level of the campaign. And boy, oh boy, have we saved the best for last. This level, aptly named Research Station, opens with a staggeringly beautiful and quintessentially Halo cutscene. Very reminiscent of the Covenant, 3 pelicans soar through an icy tundra, passing by the wreckage of a downed key ship that crashed into the now iced out lake 100 millennia ago. One pelican breaks off to recon the foreigner station as it comes into view, suspended across a frozen chasm. We get a really cool shot where the camera is kind of anchored to the pelican's wing as it comes into land, and overall the marine dialogue during this cutscene is also fantastic. That, combined with the really cool cinematography, gave this cutscene a truly militaristic vibe.
That's a sight you don't see every day.
What the hell causes something like that to even happen? Actual to all teams, we are to conduct a recon sweep into this Forerunner installation. The monitor said it's been quiet for over a millennia, so stay sharp, could be anything in there. Saber flight, after you drop off your chocks, move into an orbit over the station. Copy?
Copy, Actual. Saber will move into an orbit above the AO. Out.
There's also this shot in this cutscene as well of the Marines in one of the Pelican's troop bays, which I think is meant to be a homage to the chopper info scene from Predator, which looks amazing. This is a great touch. You know, of course, Predator and Halo kind of go hand in hand with a lot of the designs, so this kind of homage I'm a huge fan of. The station itself has been quiet for over 1,000 years, and upon closer inspection, the monitor notes that it's currently running in a low power state and has fallen into disrepair. Rather foreboding. Eventually, Arbiter and his marines disembark their Pelican and immediately infiltrate a dark and eerie foreigner installation, appearing to be abandoned, in which they find the corpse of a flood form, before hearing panicked voices over the radio from the recon team currently scouting out the primary installation.
Contact! Contact! Bravo! Move for exfil! Down! Man down!
Cutters! We're on our way!
That growl sounds awfully familiar. Pushing further up the hill, we hear the final transmission from the recon squad as the parasite within consumes them all, and we finally infiltrate the facility for ourselves. It's possible that the frozen region surrounding this installation was in fact an automated containment protocol, as the flood outbreak here clearly began a long time ago. Right from the entrance, this facility is deeply infested with infected biomass.
The ground trembles with steps unworthy of it. Have you come to die or come to bargain?
Moving through the hallways of this ancient facility, the infected numbers are vast and feature some entirely new infected for that matter as well. The first being a new kind of combat form, one that, regardless of original species, has clearly existed for a very long time, because all remnants of their former selves, their armor, their clothes, and any identifying limbs have almost entirely been converted into pure infected biomass. You also encounter another new form here as well, an unstable carrier form that, upon bursting, releases a kind of flood napalm that sticks to surfaces and burns for quite a while. But oddly, there's another enemy fighting alongside these infected, one that you wouldn't expect. The installation's sentinels. Now glowing an ominous red, they've sided with the one thing that they were created to destroy, and when we reach the next chamber, we start to understand why.
You tear away pieces of an infinite multitude. Your defiance is insignificant. Your minds are mine.
Using the power of neural physics, this Gravemind seems particularly in tune with its psychological abilities, and can corrupt not just the Sentinel subroutines, but the minds of living organic beings as well, which it quite literally does to the surviving Marines, and unfortunately the Arbiter has to put them down. Now alone, you continue through the facility and discover a device mounted into the walls, simply called an ancient weapon. Now, these things are littered throughout the facility en masse by the foreigners as a sort of break in case of emergency type thing, because this weapon, this ancient weapon, is exceedingly strong against the parasite. It's a sort of lightly explosive beam pistol with infinitely generating ammo and moderate heat buildup, and as we saw in Origins, it was used en masse by the foreigners on the front lines of their war against the Flood, so actually finally getting to use this in a game, I gotta say, is pretty badass. This thing is basically the bolt shot, but cool. This next tunnel is deeply infested with the parasite. However, it opens up at the end to reveal the room containing the shield bypass module, which unfortunately is in much the same state. However, prowling this room is a brand new model of Sentinel, one that unfortunately has also been corrupted by the Gravemind psychosis. Now, this Sentinel is pretty big and really tough. It's defended by a strong shield and armed with dual sentinel beams, one at the top of its shell and one at the bottom, along with also some kind of secondary attack that releases an electromagnetic pulse that fills the room with static energy. I do wonder if at some point the foreigners designed this sentinel for the sole purpose of clearing out rooms infested with the parasite just like this. So to disengage the lock on the bypass module in the center of the room, you have to disable a locking pin on either side of the room, and then clear it of any infected hostiles, and once the module is retrieved, you head for the exit. However, the Arbiter knows that he cannot let a Gravemind fester on this world any longer, especially one of this level of intelligence and size, and so he leaves via a different route so he can drop the module off on a Pelican before descending into the actual hive to destroy it for good. You ascend up a very ominously red glowing service elevator that's rather reminiscent of the one in the gas mine in the Flood Lab in Halo 2, before pushing through some more familiar hallways that are full of biologically and also technologically infected alike. And real quick, I gotta just point out how cool this shot of this combat form looks. I don't know if the lighting was put here like this on purpose, but there's something really creepy and imposing about the way that the light casts on this combat form. If that was intentional or not, it's pretty masterful in my opinion. Anyway, once you reach the surface, you're greeted with hands down the greatest vista this entire campaign has to offer, at least right now, and honestly, possibly one of the best that I've ever seen in Halo. Vast ice fields span into the horizon, with the giant frozen lake consuming the long-destroyed key ship, its wreckage protruding from the ice and contrasting immaculately with the bleak and grey sky. This is just gorgeous and eerily ominous. You hop on a rather familiar gondola, on which the Gravemind offers to spare the elites if the Arbiter sides with them, which of course we swiftly ignore, before being assailed at the junction by a swarm of corrupted Sentinels. And let me tell you, fighting 2 of those massive Sentinel beam dual-wielding guys at once really had my number a few times. I died more times than I care to admit to these guys. Just going back to the design of this area real quick, I love how this gondola bridge area looks. You know, there's just something about an incomprehensible bridge structure that's suspended between 2 ice caps on a distant ancient world that harbours dark secrets that just activates my almonds like nothing else. Anyway, reaching the other side of the chasm, a pelican comes in to offer a resupply and to also extract the shield bypass module, after which the Arbiter arms up and descends into the hive. And boy, is this a flood hive. There are flood tendons stretching across the hallways. The deeper you go, the darker it gets, the fog getting ever thicker and your path forward being lit only by the wreckage of the foreign installation that this used to be. Certain parts of the hive don't even feel like they were designed to be linear levels or really levels at all, in fact. There are so many branching pathways and tunnels and almost like infected biomass crawl spaces that you can take that make this area feel like it was designed to be an authentic and believable flood hive first, and then a level second or third, which I think makes it really immersive because it kind of takes away the gamification of it and makes it feel like an actual part of the world. The constant oppressive red lighting from the decaying installation, and the latter regions where the fog is so thick that you can barely even see what's right in front of you or even where you're going, only adds to the psychological torture that descending into a flood hive would realistically inflict on you. After another little jump puzzle section, where this time you jump up toadstools of rigid and calcium-rich infected biomass, you reach this, frankly, incredible-looking infected cavern, with huge tendons stretching across the walls and a thick, sickly fog that's cut into by the dull glow of the installation beneath. I honestly cannot praise the lighting of this room enough. This is exactly what I imagine deep into a flood hive would look like. Fittingly, once you've fought across these tendons, you head through more tunnels where the fog is honestly so thick you literally can't see anything, which caused me at least to get a little bit confused and almost lost and panicked, which resulted in me falling down a hole onto a giant tendril and then again into some sort of chamber. And it's here where the final boss fight, at least for now, begins.
Choices and second chances. Rejected all the same. You will join me in this rave.
The room fills with infected as a bright green fog appears where the Gravemind's actual tentacles appear, bursting from the ground. Under the orders of the monitor, you shoot these tendrils until they're destroyed, and after doing this a few times, the real abomination shows itself. The head of the Gravemind emerges from the biomass, launching infected napalm at you, but because you're playing as the Arbiter, this is kind of a cakewalk, to be quite honest. You manage to take the Gravemind down yourself on your own, after which the final cutscene for now plays, and honestly, I can't talk over this cutscene, I just gotta let it play out. pretty fucking cool, right? Like, the quality of these cutscenes, to say that they're fan-made on a budget of $0 is honestly just insane, and I think insane puts it very lightly. They're pre-rendered, but at the same time, they don't feel like entirely detached from the game that you're actually playing, like a lot of pre-rendered cutscenes do tend to feel. Like Halo 2 Anniversary, for example, where like, yeah, the cutscenes look amazing, but because they look so different to the gameplay, they feel detached. These don't feel detached. These feel like a natural extension of in-engine cutscenes. Honestly, the team that did these cutscenes, every single person involved, absolutely killed it, and I cannot wait to see what they've got coming up next. Anyway, with the Gravemind destroyed and the Monitor likely able to clean up the rest of the infected in its wake, the Arbiter retreats out of the hive and extracts in a Pelican. On the way back to the frigate, we learn that the evacuation of Andija is already underway, and the Arbiter and the rest of the Allied forces that are still at this mysterious world plan to rendezvous with Chief, Lord Hud, and the rest of the allies at the colony to defend it from the Warlord. And speaking of the Warlord, it then jumps back to the bridge of the repatriated Shadow of Intent, where it turns out that one of Artas's highest-ranking bridge crew, this Gold Elite, was actually undercover for this Warlord and the New Covenant all along, which explains why they were so easily able to take the bridge. We then get the flashback where we see the Warlord retrieve the shield module and then find Truth's body in the Citadel on the Ark before one final and very ominous Star Wars-inspired shot of the New Covenant fleet and the Shadow of Intent, clad in that impervious golden ancient shield, headed for Andija. And the campaign ends, at least for now. Suffice to say, I cannot wait to see where this campaign goes in the next levels. This was, hands down, the best, the highest quality, and most authentic feeling brand new custom campaign that I have literally played for any game ever, for Halo or literally any other game. I mean, I'm still in awe of those cutscenes, man. They look better than, honestly, a significant majority of what AAA is coming out with nowadays, and also, they just feel so authentic to Halo as well. They use the sound effects, they use the models, it just all feels so natural. I'm still in awe. So, of course, the link to download this mod, New Covenant, can be found in the description. Major props to the team who have worked and are currently working on this. I cannot wait to see where it goes next. And so, let's round this iconic video out there. I want to give a huge thank you to all of my amazing patrons for the continued support as per usual. Thank you all so much, and thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I'll catch you in the next one, when I've become invisible.